Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to 1010 News, your top 10 news in 10 minutes. I'm Andy Hong. First of all, I'd like to leave a shout out to our good friends at University High School Sword and Shield newspaper for printing our advertisement. We were worried that the weird dimensions for our ad won't fit the newspaper, but you guys pulled it out beautifully. So, cheers. Well, now that the finals are done, for better or for worse, it's business as usual now, and our business happens to be the news, so let's get right to it. Violence in the Middle East is at another high point as we enter the second month of this year. At least 26 were killed in the Sinai Peninsula when an Egyptian ISIS branch called the Sinai Province attacked a military base, a military hotel, and several checkpoints in the city of El Arish. As a result of frequent attacks by the group on Egyptian citizens and property, the government is issuing the creation of a kilometer-wide buffer zone along the border with Gaza to hopefully stop the weapons flowing through the border. Egypt's neighbor, Israel, is also on high alert as a rocket attack from the group Hezbollah claimed the lives of 2 Israeli soldiers and the Spanish UN peacekeeper. The attack was allegedly in response to an Israeli airstrike that killed 6 Hezbollah fighters and an Iranian Revolutionary Guards general. Israel was not amused and immediately responded by shelling Lebanon, the country from which the terrorist group is based. Also, in Afghanistan's Kabul airport, 3 American military contractors were killed in a series of recent shootings. America discontinued its combat missions in Afghanistan last year. However, ISIS, which is the terrorist group these days, didn't seem very interested in the developments all around them, as they have been creating a stir of their own by executing one of the 2 Japanese hostages that it has been holding along with a Jordanian hostage, and demanded a prisoner exchange with the Jordanian government. ISIS threatened that the Jordanian government that should have failed to release al-Qaeda suicide bomber Sajida al-Rishawi by a certain time, the fighter pilot Lieutenant Muat al-Qasayazbi and journalist Kenji Goto would be executed. Although international pressure is mounting on Jordan to save the captured journalist and pilot, it is not so easy, as a suicide bomber on the line was a major part of Jordan's equivalent of our 9/11 attacks. Of course, by now the deadline time has passed. We can only hope for the best for the 2 captives. Although ISIS is racking up a lot of media attention, it is still mercilessly pounded by coalition airstrikes. One of America's major allies in the operation is Saudi Arabia, perhaps America's most important Arabic friend in the Middle East. On January 23rd, however, a new king rose to the throne in Saudi Arabia following the death of the late King Abdullah, King Salman. This change might signal a major shift in anti-terrorism and petroleum policies in the Middle East, and President Obama made sure to pay due respects by visiting the new king with a large bipartisan delegation this past week. Speaking of petroleum, the Russian economy is spiraling into the toilet as we speak due to the OPEC decision to continue normal operations despite rapidly falling prices. Even with the financial devastation, the war in Ukraine continues between the pro-Russian rebels and the pro-European Union government forces. Last Saturday, Ukrainian rebels began a new offensive on the port city of Mariupol by subjecting it to indiscriminate artillery fire. At least 30 were killed, and as per usual, Moscow denied all allegations that the attack was orchestrated by Russian military commanders. Another shelling today in Donetsk killed 12 people. Many residents are blaming the Ukrainian military. Also, more than 70 years after the end of Operation Steinbock, which was the Nazi Germany's last air offensive against England, British residents were dismayed to find out that once more foreign bombers were flying over the English Channel. The United Kingdom's Foreign Office summoned the Russian ambassador after 2 Russian nuclear-capable bombers flew over the channel, disrupting civilian air traffic and upsetting residents until 2 Royal Air Force fighter jets escorted the bombers out of British airspace. Due to these developments, European Union foreign ministers decided to extend pre-existing sanctions against Russia until September of this year. But please, since when did sanctions ever stop a major war? Even as the fighting continues, the wreckage of Malaysian Air Flight 17 still sits in the sunflower fields of eastern Ukraine after being shot down by rebel anti-aircraft missiles last year. 2014 was full of major aviation accidents, the most recent one being the crash of AirAsia 8501. More details of the crash are being revealed, but it turns out that the first officer, not the captain, was at the controls when the Airbus A320 made a steep climb from 32,000 to 37,000 feet, stalled, and plunged into the stormy Java Sea. Many officials are pointing to possible computer failures and their effects on the inexperienced first officer, which brings up another issue in modern aviation: over-reliance on computer systems for flight. The Airbus line of aircraft, along with many late Boeing designs, are unique from previous aircraft like the McDonnell Douglas MD-11 or the Ilyushin IL-62, that they're highly computerized planes. This automation reduced mishaps dramatically and made commercial flights safer than ever, but at the same time poses a great risk in that over-relying on such systems could lead to dramatic consequences should the computers fail in the hands of inexperienced pilots. The crash of Air France Flight 447 is a spitting parallel to that of Air Asia A501 and might hold clues to the latter. The Air France Airbus A330, another computer-oriented plane, was flying through rough weather when its pitot tubes, which measure airspeed, froze over and caused the autopilot to disconnect. When the autopilot failed, the pilots were conflicted as to how to react to the problem and ended up pitching the nose up, which led to a fatal stall and crashed into the Atlantic Ocean. The problem with freezing pitot tubes was promptly cited and corrected after the official report was released in 2012, but there may still be other mechanical factors that could have contributed to the crash of Air Asia A501. In Mexico City, a children's hospital was nearly completely destroyed when a gas leak from a routine natural gas delivery turned deadly. The subsequent explosion collapsed 70% of the building, killed at least 2, and injured more than 60. Rescue workers are still chipping away at the concrete wreckage in search of the survivors. Fortunately, the hospital and the surrounding residents avoided a much larger incident as the oxygen tanks nearby didn't detonate as a result of the initial explosion. Well, what's the point of not having children's hospitals explode here in America if people aren't going there to get vaccinated? The new measles outbreak is a testament to the sorry state of American healthcare and superstition. There are 95 cases so far, 79 of which are here in California, mostly because 1. The outbreak started here, and 2. The state of California allows parents to not get their children vaccinated on grounds of conflicts with personal beliefs. But the problem isn't just that people are ignorant enough to think that vaccination is related to causing other major diseases. Too many people can't afford to get vaccinations or even access a hospital near them because the state of healthcare in this nation is just deplorable for too many citizens. As a result, the people who have pre-existing medical conditions that prevent them from getting vaccinations now have to worry about previously eradicated diseases. What next? Diphtheria, polio, smallpox? Welcome back, Dark Ages. It's been a while, hasn't it? Well, of course, the Dark Ages, and no, I am not talking about your middle school days, were not only marked by curable but deadly infectious diseases, but also by the complete lack of civil liberties, such as the freedom to have an education that is not skewed and censored by the government. In China, however, the education minister has ordered China's universities to avoid textbooks that promote Western values, maintain political integrity, and criticize neither China's leaders nor its political system. According to the BBC, the past few months have seen a rapid tightening of academic restrictions. Several professors have been sacked and jailed along with several students. These developments are probably due to President Xi Jinping's urges for greater ideological supervision in universities. I would like to say that American universities are much better in the sense of the freedoms that we enjoy, but then the price tag. My brother in NYU certainly isn't complaining about blatant government censorship, but he is worried about the second round of powerful snowstorms in the Northeast. New York City wasn't hit as hard as many predicted, but many coastal communities faced hurricane-force winds and large storm surges that flooded entire neighborhoods with seawater. Many of the neighborhoods damaged by the storm were in New England, which is clearly in no mood to celebrate the New England Patriots' shady entrance into the Super Bowl against the Seattle Seahawks. The Pats have been attacked by the Deflategate scandal as the team allegedly used underinflated balls to help win the playoff match. The outcome of this scandal will probably have no bearing on the Super Bowl, but it elicited another melancholic press conference from NFL Commissioner and professional apologist Roger Goodell, as well as a casual joke of the incident by President Obama at the annual House Democratic Retreat in Philadelphia. Obama also made a few glancing blows at Mitt Romney, who finally announced that he will not help the Democratic Party by running for president again. Nevertheless, the Democratic Party is still in some deep doo-doo as the Republicans are in complete control of both houses of Congress. Even with the adverse conditions, President Obama managed to nominate Loretta Lynch to be the replacement for the unpopular Eric Holder for U.S. Attorney General. The first African-American woman to serve in the post, she is an experienced prosecutor who has won the hearts of several Republicans by promising that she is not another Eric Holder. Well, Microsoft's Bill Gates is apparently not as worried about the prospect of Jeb Bush becoming president as he is about artificial intelligence destroying human civilization. Well, I guess it could be the end either way, except the former would begin a new era of political comedy. Gates, however, is not amused at all. During a Q&A session on Reddit, the billionaire wrote, "I am in the camp that is concerned about superintelligence. First, the machines will do a lot of jobs for us and will not be super intelligent. That should be positive if we manage it well. A few decades after that, though, the intelligence is strong enough to be a concern. I agree with Elon Musk and some others on this, and don't understand why some people are not concerned. Don't worry. This doesn't mean that Siri will kill you in your sleep tomorrow, but this is definitely food for thought over the weekend. Speaking of food, what food is more universal than chicken? Chicken eggs. And all along, we've learned that once an egg is boiled, it's boiled. It stays that way. It's done. No turning back. Sort of like my borderline grades. If you will, however, for this week's science news, in a brilliant flash of unbelievable human innovation, scientists managed to unboil an egg. Yes, turn that chewy and creamy inside back to yolk form so that now you can use your stash of boiled eggs as well to egg your neighbors. How did they pull it off? When you boil an egg, the heat denatures the proteins in the yolk and solidifies it. By pulling apart and reorganizing the protein back to its original shape, the scientists could get the egg yolk back to its original form. But please, don't egg your neighbors. Yeah, seriously, don't egg your neighbors. And on that happy note, this was 1010 News for this week. I'm Andy Hong. Make sure to like us on Facebook and YouTube, and good luck on your second semester. We'll be back next week with more of your top 10 news in 10 minutes. Stay educated.